Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Draft Day Disaster, the series where we use the gift of hindsight to look back at a previous NHL entry draft, but instead of highlighting the most successful players, we select the worst first round possible. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at one of the best draft classes in the modern NHL and the entire history of the draft, as we turn the 2003 NHL Entry Draft into a draft day disaster. For those of you who have either never watched this series before, have forgotten how this all works since the last episode, as it has been quite a while, or never understood it to begin with, I shall be redrafting the first round of the 2003 NHL Entry Draft using players selected in the first two rounds of the actual draft that went on to have the shortest, the most disappointing, or non-existent careers in the NHL. Instead of starting with the first overall pick and counting up like the real draft does, we shall begin with the 30th overall pick, where the best player of this bad bunch shall be selected, and count down until we reach the first overall pick and the worst player on this list. So without further ado, let's turn the 2003 NHL Entry Draft into a draft day disaster. With the 30th pick in the draft, instead of actually choosing Sean Bell, the St. Louis Blues select Jeff Tambellini. Originally drafted 27th overall by the Los Angeles Kings, this Canadian forward suited up in 242 NHL games over 6 seasons, with the Kings, the New York Islanders, and the Vancouver Canucks, where he scored 63 points. Following the conclusion of the 10-11 season, Tambellini left the National Hockey League and spent the next 6 seasons taking his talents to several leagues around the world, as he suited up in the Swiss National League, the Swedish Hockey League, and the AHL, where he scored 157 points in 288 regular season games. After a dozen years playing professional hockey, Tambellini has seemingly hung up his skates and called it a career, as he last played for the Vancouver Lakers of the SHL during the 16-17 season, where he went scoreless in 10 games. Not exactly the way you want to bow out, but at least he won an NLA championship and an SHL championship along the way. With the 29th choice in the draft, instead of actually selecting Patrick Eaves, the Ottawa Senators draft KAMIL KREPS. Originally selected 38th overall by the Florida Panthers, KREPS suited up in 232 NHL games over 4 seasons with the Panthers and scored 60 points for his efforts. The Czech forward then departed from North America and spent time in the Finnish Liga, the KHL, the Swiss National League, and his native Czech league, before playing his final year with the Wolfsburg Grizzlies of the German DEL during the 17-18 season. Despite housing nothing more than a bronze medal at the World Junior Championships in 01-02 in his trophy cabinet, KREPS established himself as a reliable middle six forward wherever he played throughout his career, since he scored 153 points in 293 games in the 8 seasons following his exit from North America. With the 28th pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Corey Perry, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim select Marc-Antoine Pouliot. Originally drafted 22nd overall by the Edmonton Oilers, Pouliot took to the ice in 192 NHL games over 7 seasons with the Oilers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Phoenix Coyotes, where he scored 57 points. Following his exit from the NHL and North American hockey, Pouliot has seemingly found a second home in Switzerland, as the Canadian forward has spent the last 8 seasons in the National League, where he has scored 244 points in 290 regular season games. In fact, Pouliot is still playing in the Swiss League to this day, as he is contracted to play for EHC Biel until the conclusion of the 1920 season. Well, at least one player on this list is still playing hockey professionally, right guys? With the 27th selection in the draft, instead of actually drafting Jeff Tambellini, the Los Angeles Kings pick Colin McDonald. Originally selected 51st overall by the Edmonton Oilers, McDonald played in 148 NHL games over 7 seasons with the Oilers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the New York Islanders, and the Philadelphia Flyers, where he scored 46 points for his efforts. Unlike the rest of the players we have looked at so far, McDonald has continued to ply his trade in North America following his departure from the league. The Canadian forward has spent the last 3 seasons as the captain of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms of the AHL, before signing with the New York Islanders AHL affiliate, the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, for the upcoming 1920 season. Sometimes home really is where the heart is. With the 26th pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Brian Boyle, the Los Angeles Kings select Jean-Francois Jacques. Originally drafted 68th overall by the Edmonton Oilers, this Canadian forward suited up in 166 NHL games over 6 seasons with the Oilers and the Anaheim Ducks, where he scored 17 points. Jacques left North American hockey behind following the 13-14 season and spent the next 4 seasons playing in the EBEL, the DEL, and the Italian League, to the tune of 94 points in 156 regular season games, before finally hanging up his skates at the conclusion of the 17-18 season. With the 25th choice in the draft, instead of actually picking Anthony Stewart, the Florida Panthers draft Matt Smaby. Originally selected 41st overall by the Tampa Bay Lightning, Smaby played 4 seasons in the NHL, all with the Lightning, and scored 6 points in 122 games. The American defensive defenseman then headed overseas following the 12-13 season, and spent the next 4 years with EHC Munich of the DEL, where he scored 41 points in 157 regular season games before calling it a career. He did, however, win back-to-back championships whilst in Germany, which is certainly more silverware than the last few players on this list can boast. With the 24th selection in the draft, instead of actually drafting Mike Richards, the Philadelphia Flyers pick Jeremy Colliton. Originally chosen 58th overall by the New York Islanders, Colliton suited up in 57 games with the Islanders, split over 5 seasons, and scored 6 points. Following his final stint in Long Island during the 10-11 season, the Canadian forward spent time in the AHL and the Allsvenskan before hanging up his skates following the 13-14 season. Colliton didn't stay away from hockey for long though, as he immediately took a coaching job with his Swedish side Mora IK, and spent the next 4 seasons behind the bench, before returning to North America in order to join the Chicago Blackhawks organization, where he now serves as the Chicago Blackhawks head coach. Not bad for a guy who scored just half a dozen points in the league, eh lads? With the 23rd pick in the draft, instead of actually choosing Ryan Kesler, the Vancouver Canucks select Ryan Stone. Originally selected 32nd overall by the Pittsburgh Penguins, this Canadian forward played in 35 NHL games over 3 seasons with the Penguins and the Edmonton Oilers, where he scored 7 points for his efforts. Following the 09-10 season, Stone departed from the NHL and took to the ice in the AHL, the Finnish Liga, and the DEL, where he scored 46 points in 97 regular season games over the next 2 seasons, before calling it a career at the conclusion of the 11-12 season. With the 22nd selection in the draft, instead of actually choosing Marc-Antoine Pouliot, the Edmonton Oilers pick Danny Richmond. Originally drafted 31st overall by the Carolina Hurricanes, Richmond took to the ice in 49 NHL games over 4 seasons with the Hurricanes and the Chicago Blackhawks, where he scored 3 points. The American defenseman then left the league following the 07-08 season and spent 4 seasons playing for a number of teams in the AHL before heading overseas. Richmond then took his talents to the Finnish Liga and the EBEL until he decided to settle down in the DEL for 6 seasons, where he scored 153 points in 284 games and won a league championship in 14-15. The American defenseman most recently played for Eisbären Berlin this past season, but was informed he would not have his contract renewed with the team. So whilst the 35-year-old is currently a free agent, there is a chance he finds a spot on a new roster for the upcoming season. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. With the 21st choice in the draft, instead of actually picking Mark Stewart, the Boston Bruins draft Michael BARINKA. Originally selected 59th overall by the Chicago Blackhawks, this Czech defenseman played in 34 games split over 2 seasons with the Blackhawks and scored a pair of points. BARINKA departed from the league following the 05-06 season and spent time playing in the AHL, the Swiss National League, the KHL, but most prominently, his native Czech league, where he has played parts of 12 seasons since leaving North America and scored 98 points in 410 Czech League games. BARINKA spent the 18-19 season with HC Kometa Brno, but didn't have his contract renewed for the upcoming season. However, BARINKA has been seen on the ice practicing with Rytiri Kladno, Jaromír Jágr's Czech League team, and is rumoured to be joining the team at some point this season, so there is a chance that BARINKA suits up in the Czech League once again for the upcoming season. With the 20th pick in the draft, instead of actually choosing Brent Burns, the Minnesota Wild select Konstantin Pushkaryov. Originally drafted 44th overall by the Los Angeles Kings, Pushkaryov suited up in 17 NHL games, split over 2 seasons with the Kings, and scored 5 points. Following his final stint with the Kings during the 06-07 season, the forward from Kazakhstan took his talents to the AHL, the KHL, the Latvian League, and the Kazakhstani League, where he has scored 176 points in 494 regular season games. In fact, Pushkaryov is returning to his hometown league once again for the upcoming 1920 season, as he has signed a contract with HK Almaty. Granted, it's not exactly considered a prestigious league, but it's still a professional hockey league around the world, so fair play to him, I say. With the 19th selection in the draft, instead of actually picking Ryan Getzlaf, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim draft Stefan MEYER. Originally chosen 55th overall by the Florida Panthers, MEYER took to the ice in 20 NHL games, split over 2 seasons with the Panthers and the Calgary Flames, where he scored a pair of points. After his final stint in the Bigs during the 10-11 season, MEYER took his talents to the AHL, the SHL, the DEL2, and the British Elite Ice Hockey League over the next 5 seasons, before hanging up his skates following his second year with the EIHL's Brayhead Clan during the 15-16 season. Though he never won any trophies during his time in North America, MEYER was able to win the first and only championship of his career during the 13-14 season, when he won the EIHL Playoff Championship with the Sheffield Steelers. It was a long time coming, but certainly worth the wait, I am sure. With the 18th pick in the draft, instead of actually choosing Eric Fair, the Washington Capitals select Josh Hennessy. Originally drafted 43rd overall by the San Jose Sharks, this American forward suited up in 23 games over 5 seasons with the Ottawa Senators and the Boston Bruins, where he scored just a single point for his efforts. Following his brief stint with the Bruins during the 11-12 season, Hennessy spent the rest of the season in the AHL with Boston's affiliate, the Providence Bruins, before taking his talents to the KHL, the Swiss National League, and the SHL over the following 5 seasons, where he scored 82 points in 218 regular season games, as well as clinch an SHL championship with the Vancouver Lakers in 2015. Hennessy then decided to head back to Providence for the 17-18 season to play what appears to be the final year of his professional playing career. Who says you can't go home after 5 years in Europe, eh? With the 17th choice in the draft, instead of actually selecting Zach Parise, the New Jersey Devils draft, Peter Vrana. Originally picked 42nd overall, funnily enough by the New Jersey Devils, Vrana played in 16 games with the Devils, all during the 08-09 season, and scored a lone point. Once his season in New Jersey concluded, the Czech forward decided to take his talents overseas and return home to play in his native Czech league for 2 seasons. Vrana then moved to the KHL for 4 seasons, where he scored 97 points in 182 games, and then spent a year in the SHL before returning to the Czech league once more for the 16-17 season. In fact, Vrana is still playing in the Czech league to this day, as he is contracted to play with HC Oceleri CHERNYKH, the team he joined midway through last season via trade and helped lead to a league championship for the upcoming 1920 season. With the 16th pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Steve Bernier, the San Jose Sharks select David LIFFITON. Originally chosen 63rd overall by the Colorado Avalanche, this Canadian defenseman suited up in 7 NHL games with the New York Rangers and the Avalanche split over 3 seasons and scored a single point. Following his stint with the Avalanche during the 10-11 season, LIFFITON captained the Lake Erie Monsters of the AHL for a season before playing in Italy, the SHL, the Allsvenskan, and the EBEL over the next 4 seasons, where he scored 27 points in 189 regular season games, before hanging up his skates following a year in Denmark with the Frederikshavn Whitehawks during the 16-17 season. Interestingly though, this was not LIFFITON's first time playing in Denmark, as he played for EFB Ice Hockey during the 08-09 season, 2 years after his second stint with the Rangers, and 2 years before his brief stint with the Avalanche. It's not often you hear of a player taking a year in Denmark before returning to the NHL, but I guess LIFFITON is an exception. You may have noticed that the number of NHL games played and points scored have gone down drastically over the last few picks. Well, don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen, we still have half the list to go and much further to fall. Are you ready? I know I am. With the 15th choice in the draft, instead of actually selecting Robert Nilsson, the New York Islanders draft Wojtek Polak. Originally picked 36th overall by the Dallas Stars, Polak played in 5 NHL games with the Stars over 2 seasons, but went scoreless in that span. The Czech forward then spent a season with the Iowa Stars, Dallas's AHL affiliate at the time, before heading to Europe to play in the Czech League, the Swiss National League, the Finnish Liga, and the KHL, where he scored 261 points in 463 regular season games over 12 seasons. Polak last played for the KHL's Admiral Vladivostok during the previous 18-19 season, but was released from the team at the conclusion of said season. Will the 34-year-old forward find further employment in the KHL? Will he take his talents to another European league or back home to his native Czech league? Or will he decide to hang up his skates and call it a career? I guess we'll have to wait and see. With the 14th selection in the draft, instead of actually picking Brent Seabrook, the Chicago Blackhawks draft Ivan BARINKA. Originally chosen 50th overall by the New York Rangers, this Slovakian defenseman suited up in just a single NHL game with the Rangers during the 07-08 season and scored 1 point. Can't complain with a points per game average like that now, can you? Following his debut in the best league in the world, BARINKA took to the ice in the KHL, the SHL and the Czech League, where he has scored 173 points in 496 regular season games over the last 11 seasons. In fact, BARINKA will still have the chance to add to his career numbers, as he is contracted to play for HC Kometa Brno of the Czech League for the upcoming 1920 season. With the 13th pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Dustin Brown, the Los Angeles Kings select Masi Maiamaki. Originally drafted 66th overall by the Boston Bruins, Maiamaki played in just one NHL game with the New York Islanders during the 05-06 season, and went scoreless in his debut. Following his lone game in the Bigs, the Finnish forward played another season with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, the Islanders' AHL affiliate, before heading to Europe, where he suited up in the Finnish Liga, the KHL, the Allsvenskan, and the Czech League, where he put up 176 points in 422 regular season games over 12 seasons. Maiamaki's European hockey adventure is still very much ongoing, as he has now taken his talents to the UK, as he signed a contract with the EIHL's Cardiff Devils for the upcoming 1920 season. Given his 2 points in 4 games in the Champions Hockey League already this season, it seems the Finnish forward might be starting to make a name for himself in Wales. With the 12th selection in the draft, instead of actually picking Hugh Jessiman, you might want to remember that name for later, guys, the New York Rangers draft Tim Ramholt. Originally chosen 39th overall by the Calgary Flames, Ramholt took to the ice in a single game for the Flames during the 07-08 season and scored no points for his efforts. After his brief stint in the NHL, the Swiss defenseman spent another year in the AHL before heading home to Switzerland to play in the country's National League, where he scored 119 points in 398 regular season games over 9 seasons, as well as winning a league championship with HC Davos in 10-11 and with EHC COLLTON in 16-17, and the Spengler Cup with Davos in 11-12. In fact, Ramholt would play out the remainder of his professional career in the NLA, as he last played for COLLTON during the 17-18 season before hanging up his skates and calling it a day. He wasn't the sort to put up many points, but he was dedicated to his hometown league until his final game. Can't really fault him for that, can you? With the 11th pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Jeff Carter, the Philadelphia Flyers select Igor Murnov. Originally chosen 67th overall by the Ottawa Senators, this Russian forward never played hockey in North America and never suited up in a National Hockey League game, instead spending his career in his Russian homeland, where he put up 143 points in 290 Russian Super League regular season games over 7 seasons, and 250 points in 459 KHL regular season games over 10 seasons. Murnov spent the previous 18-19 season with Buran Voronezh in Russia's second-tier league, the VHL, and put up 32 points in 39 games. So unless he has decided to hang up his skates and call it a career, the 34-year-old will surely find a place on a VHL or even a KHL roster during the 1920 season. We've reached the top 10 worst players of this draft day disaster. And if you think what we have seen already is bad enough, brace yourselves, folks, you ain't seen nothing yet. With the 10th selection in the draft, instead of actually picking Andrei Kostitsyn, the Montreal Canadiens draft Konstantin GLAZACHEV. Originally chosen 35th overall by the Nashville Predators, GLAZACHEV also never suited up in the NHL or North America as a whole, instead opting to remain in his native Russia, where he has scored 73 points in 197 RSL games over 7 seasons, as well as 275 points in 467 KHL regular season games over 12 seasons. In fact, GLAZACHEV is still playing in the KHL to this day, as he is currently in his 3rd season with Admiral Vladivostok and has gone scoreless in 2 games during the current 1920 season. With the 9th pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Dion Phaneuf, the Calgary Flames select Mike Egener. Originally selected 34th overall by the Tampa Bay Lightning, this Canadian defenseman never got the opportunity to suit up in the best league in the world, so instead spent his time in the AHL, where he scored 14 points in 175 AHL games over 4 seasons. Following his final season in the A with the Norfolk Admirals during the 07-08 season, Egener took his talents to the ECHL, the Allsvenskan, the Danish League, and the Elite Ice Hockey League, where he spent his last 3 seasons with the Coventry Blaze and scored 30 points in 120 regular season games, as well as winning the 2015 EIHL Playoff Championship before retiring after the 14-15 season. Since hanging up his skates, Egener appears to have begun a career in coaching, as he spent a season as an assistant coach of Mont-Royal University before taking the head coach position at the Okanagan Hockey Academy, a position he has held for the past 2 seasons. With the 8th selection in the draft, instead of actually choosing Braden Coburn, the Atlanta Thrashers, may they rest in peace, draft DMITRI CHERNYKH. Originally picked 48th overall by the New York Islanders, CHERNYKH either never got an opportunity to play in the NHL or opted to spend the majority of his career in his native Russia, with brief stints in Belarus and the ECHL along the way. The Russian forward has spent the past 10 seasons bouncing between the KHL and the VHL, where he has scored 35 points in 169 KHL regular season games and 78 points in 179 VHL regular season games, as well as winning a VHL championship in 14-15. This pattern of bouncing between leagues appears to be continuing to this day, as CHERNYKH is contracted to play for Spartak Moscow of the KHL for the 1920 season, but was sent down to their VHL affiliate before the start of the year. With the 7th choice in the draft, instead of actually picking Ryan Suter, the Nashville Predators select CORY URQUHART. Originally drafted 40th overall by the Montreal Canadiens, this Canadian forward spent the majority of his career alternating between the AHL and the ECHL, where he scored 29 points in 68 AHL regular season games and 206 points in 251 ECHL regular season games, as well as winning the 2007 Calder Cup with the Hamilton Bulldogs of the AHL. Following the 08-09 season, Urquhart took his talents overseas to Europe, as he spent the next 3 seasons in Germany, split between the DEL and the DEL2, where he scored 113 points in 148 games. After his 2nd season in 3 years with Heilbronner Falken during the 11-12 season, Urquhart decided to hang up his skates and call it a day on his professional playing career. Since retiring from professional hockey, according to his Twitter, Urquhart now owns and operates a vegan restaurant in Halifax. Not what I was expecting to discover when I was researching this video, but a pleasant surprise nonetheless. With the 6th pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Milan Michalek, the San Jose Sharks select YEVGENI TUNIK. Originally selected 53rd overall by the New York Islanders, TUNIK is another Russian forward on this list who played nearly the entirety of his career in his homeland, either due to personal choice or there being little to no opportunity for him to play in the NHL. He did, however, play one season in the AHL with the Islanders' affiliate Bridgeport Sound Tigers during the 05-06 season, where he scored 18 points in 61 games. After that, though, the Russian forward spent the next 10 seasons bouncing around Russia's minor leagues, where he put up 248 points in 417 regular season games, before calling it a day following the 15-16 season. TUNIK did manage to win a VHL championship during the 11-12 season, so he did earn something for all of his years of hard work. We are down to the final 5, and boy, are we scraping the bottom of the proverbial draft barrel now, folks. With the 5th overall pick in the draft, instead of actually selecting Thomas Vanek, the Buffalo Sabres draft Sean Bell. Originally selected 30th overall by the St. Louis Blues, Bell did actually make it to the NHL, where he played in 20 games over 4 seasons with the Minnesota Wild, the Montreal Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers, and the Colorado Avalanche, scoring a single point for his efforts. Following his final stint in the Bigs during the 10-11 season, the Canadian defenseman took his talents overseas as he suited up in the DEL, the SHL, then back to the DEL, where he scored 26 points in 155 regular season games over 4 seasons. Once his 14-15 season with Dusseldorf EG concluded, Bell decided to announce his retirement from playing professional hockey and try his hand at coaching, as he held various assistant coaching roles over the past 4 seasons before taking a head coaching job with the OHA Edmonton Elite 15s for the 1920 season. You could argue that Bell should have been lower on this list, since he did actually make it to the NHL and play a fair number of games, but since he was a first round pick and clearly didn't pan out as well as pretty much the rest of his first round cohort, I figured this was a good place to put him on this list. With the 4th overall pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Nikolai Zherdev, the Columbus Blue Jackets select Marc-Andre Bernier. Originally chosen 60th overall by the Vancouver Canucks, this Canadian forward never made it to the NHL and, surprisingly, had a rather brief career in the AHL too, as he only suited up in 39 AHL games over 3 seasons and scored just a pair of points. Bernier left North American hockey behind following the 08-09 season and took his talents to France, where he became a mainstay thanks to his 288 points in 208 French League games over 8 seasons, as well as winning 2 French Cup championships, 2 French championships, and a league championship. After leaving France behind following the 16-17 season, Bernier returned to North America as he signed with Sorel Tracy Epervier of the LNAH. I butchered that pronunciation, didn't I? I tried my best, I really did. Where he scored 21 points in 29 games before hanging up his skates and calling it a career. A 2nd round NHL draft pick isn't exactly expected to be playing in France of all places just 5 years after being drafted, but he won his fair share of trophies while he was there, so at least he made the most of his opportunity. With the 3rd overall pick in the draft, instead of actually choosing Nathan Horton, the Florida Panthers select Branislav Fabry. Originally drafted 65th overall by the Buffalo Sabres, this Slovakian forward seemingly decided that playing hockey in North America wasn't his kind of thing, as he never played a single game in either the NHL, the AHL, or any other North American league. Instead, Fabry has spent his career playing in a whole host of leagues around Europe, including such countries as Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Sweden, Kazakhstan and Poland, where he has amassed 310 points in 600 regular season games, as well as winning a Slovakian championship in 04-05, a Kazakhstan championship in 12-13, and a Slovakia League 2 championship in 15-16. Though his professional playing career has already spanned 17 seasons and 6 different countries, Fabry's journey isn't done just yet, as he is contracted to HC Nové Zámky of the Slovakian League for the upcoming 1920 season. He may not have made a name for himself in some of the best leagues around, but Fabry has had one hell of an adventure around the hockey world, that's for sure. Penultimately, with the second overall pick in the draft, instead of actually drafting Eric Staal, the Carolina Hurricanes select John Doherty. Originally drafted 57th overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs, Doherty also never played a single game in either the NHL or the AHL. In fact, following the 2003 entry draft, this American defenseman played hockey for just 4 more seasons, where he spent his time in such leagues as the NCAA, the USHL, the ECHL, the UHL, and the CHL, scoring 26 points in 111 regular season games, before retiring at the conclusion of the 07-08 season, which he played with the Tulsa Oilers. Unfortunately, my research into why Doherty retired so early at 24 years old, or what he is up to now that he is no longer playing hockey, has been rather fruitless, so I guess for now this one shall remain a mystery. One thing I do know is that the Maple Leafs probably wish they could redo this pick again, and at least find someone that would contribute just a little more to their franchise. Even if it was someone who played a handful of AHL games for them, that's still better than what they got from Doherty. And finally, last and most certainly least, with the first overall pick in this draft day disaster, instead of actually drafting Marc-Andre Fleury, the Pittsburgh Penguins select Hugh Jessamine. A prime example of how a top 15 draft pick can go horribly wrong, Jessamine was originally drafted 12th overall by the New York Rangers and went on to suit up in just 2 NHL games. 2. The 12th highest player selected in one of the greatest drafts in NHL history played just 2 NHL games, and they weren't even with the Rangers. He didn't even play those 2 games until the 10-11 season with the Florida Panthers, 8 years after he was drafted. He didn't score a point either, which just makes matters even worse. Considering 15 of the next 18 players selected after Jessamine in the first round went on to play at least 250 NHL games, 13 of which played over 500 NHL games, and 4 of which played over 1,000 NHL games, and it's clear that Hugh Jessamine really does deserve his place at the front of the line as the worst player on this list of draft disappointment. And that's how you turn the 2003 NHL Entry Draft into a draft day disaster. What do you think about this redraft? Would you have ranked the players differently, or is there another player that you would have added to this list? Also, is there another NHL Entry Draft that you would like me to turn upside down? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. A big thank you to Chris Gadsby, Connor B, Dave, Martin Tolness, Max Artis, Nat Marlowe, Paul Mallia, and The Legacy for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further, and get a shout out at the end of every future video, Make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.